Wisconsin is suing Miami. College football in 2025. It's just the best. Ryan Harings of Locked On Badgers, also one of the best you'll find out there. So this is all in regards, Ryan, to Xavier Lucas, who I have long described here on the program as among the most hilarious players in the history of college football, who just taught us all that the transfer portal is a myth and doesn't have to exist because he wanted to leave Wisconsin. Wisconsin said, no, you have a contract. He said, okay, well, if you won't let me go in the portal, I'm just going to unenroll from school and then I'll go enroll at Miami and join the football team. And the NCAA was like, well, you're totally allowed to do that. There's nothing we can do to stop you. So now there's a lawsuit that comes about. Can you help us understand what exactly is happening here?
Yeah, I can definitely try as much as anybody can, really. I mean, you mentioned it, man. What a chaos agent Xavier Lucas threw. At some points through no fault of his own. Like, somebody was going to cause chaos because the NCAA set this system up that doesn't make any sense in general. So essentially, you have a player, Xavier Lucas, who went to Wisconsin. It was a big recruiting battle, and then he spent the year there. Big part of their supposed future. The staff was really high on him, and they brought a contract forth. And again, this is all in what Wisconsin put out. So this is not me breaking any of this. Wisconsin said he entered into an agreement and received a decent financial payment. I think the exact words they used were incurred substantial monetary payment or something like that. So money was exchanged, again, according to the Wisconsin statement here. And then what they're saying essentially is you can't just take money, not play, and then leave right away. And Miami played a big part in that. So
Caden Proctor would beg to differ.
Well, and here's what I tell you. Here's what's crazy about this, because Caden Proctor is a great example of this as well. And listen, these aren't the only guys. Everybody in college football, from coaches to conferences to fans, have talked and complained about tampering. Like Georgia's complained, Sankey's complained, Clemson, Mora. I mean, you could go down and down the list, right? Everybody seems to hate tampering. Fans don't like it. The system doesn't work. And then one school stands up and says, okay, if this is a problem, let's do something about it. And then people are like, well, everybody does it. What are they doing? And I'm like, I just feel like we're at the emperor has no clothes point, right? Like, Wisconsin is doing what so many people want some school to do. Wisconsin is standing up to the fact that tampering is ridiculous and it's not good. And now people are like, well, I don't know about that. I don't know. You want somebody to stand up and do something about it or not? And I'm kind of proud, honestly, as a Wisconsin guy, that Wisconsin is a school doing it.
Yeah, it's worthy of discussion because it is unique in that we have not had a school literally go to court and say you tampered with our player. And we had this, that, and the other thing. And look, I do historically come down on the side of, I'm not that bothered by tampering at all. I understand that there can be negative components to it. I get it. Players getting texts during the season about, what their plans could be for next year. That's not great. I don't know how you're actually going to police that in the age of mass media. DMs are a lot more easier to access perhaps than text messages. And what if you do the thing over Snapchat and then the messages disappear after they've been read immediately? Like, I think there's just always going to be a workaround, and it is incredibly prevalent in college football. But what is Wisconsin hoping to accomplish here? Because they're not getting Xavier Lucas back. He's probably going to go start in Miami's secondary, which is the other kind of hilarious part about this whole situation, Ryan. This is not a second string kicker who just wanted to leave, or a third string quarterback that was looking for an opportunity. No, this is a starting caliber defensive back at the Power 4 level. Like, this is a dude. One of the reasons that Miami feels they will be better on the defensive side of the ball is, number one, they have a new defensive staff. Number two, they have new players like Xavier Lucas, who they look at and go, it's probably a starter, probably an upgrade over what we had before. So what is Wisconsin trying to accomplish, in your view, by suing Miami for tampering?
Yeah, a couple things there I want to unpack, and you're totally right. Like, Xavier Lucas is a really good player, which is why this is happening. Like, you don't fight battles over backup centers and place kickers. You fight them over guys who can start in the secondary at Miami, which there's not a plethora of those guys in Wisconsin secondary. I'll tell you that. There's not a lot of 6'1" guys that run a 4.4. What Wisconsin is trying to get out of it. So if you look in their statement, they are looking for an undisclosed some type of financial thing to come back, which I'm telling you right now is probably going to be essentially what they paid to Xavier Lucas nominally for the year that would be upcoming, right? They're going to look for that financial amount of money back to some degree. And they're also looking for, and I don't know the full legal term for it, but eventually, or essentially Miami to acknowledge the fact that they did wrong here, that they tampered. And you're right in the sense of it is prevalent. A lot of schools do this, and I don't know how you fully enforce it, but I think this is kind of how you might do it. You might just sue. I mean, like that might be how you enforce it. And to take that a step further, right? I think what Wisconsin might big picture get out of it is schools might think twice about tampering. If you have a place where you know a school is going to potentially cause litigation if you mess with their players and you tamper, you just may go get Iowa's guy instead. You just may go get someone else instead, because Wisconsin has set a precedent that if we think we have a good case here, and I will tell you this, Wisconsin, like every school, has lost other players to the portal. This is the first player where they made a big deal about it. And it's not just because Xavier Lucas is good. It's because they have a case, because they at least think, right, in their frame of reference that they have a case. Otherwise, this would not be moving forward. So I think they're trying to set a precedent, and probably not just for Wisconsin, but also for the Big Ten, which is why the Big Ten's backing them, that tampering is not, I would say, egregious examples of tampering are not going to go either uninvestigated or, on responded to. And I think that's what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, I think they're mostly acting in their own self-interest, which is most of college sports, quite frankly, because it is not a widespread and generally applicable solution to say that, well, that's how we're going to curb tampering in college athletics. Like the NCAA, if they wanted to get a handle, I don't know what they do anymore, but like what goes on at their offices every day, I don't really know. But like if they wanted to get a handle on it, their solution wouldn't be, we're going to encourage every school to bring a lawsuit against a school that okay, so you're telling me, Boise State's offensive coordinator, Dirk Cutter, or former offensive coordinator now, said that, one of their offensive linemen had gotten an offer from Oregon for a few $100,000. He didn't take it and stayed there and whatnot, but he felt like it was a tampering situation. Is the NCAA going to call Boise State and say, hey, so that we can keep this thing on, start to minimize the number of these instances, we'd like you to sue Oregon. Okay, thanks. And then just put down the phone and do the money ball. Once you get the answer you're looking for, hang up. And, whatever other instance could come about. Like, you see what I'm saying, though? Like, this is Wisconsin, perhaps. Like, I like the angle that you came at it with. I hadn't really thought about that. I think it's Wisconsin potentially protecting themselves against future players being tampered with and giving themselves a greater likelihood they'll keep guys out of the portal, because it might not be as big of an incentive, or it could be at least a slight deterrent for another school to reach out to someone on the Wisconsin program. But I don't think that's going to be an expectation to just, widely take over across the country. And then all of a sudden in 3 years we go, yeah, that tampering thing, that's a thing of the past.
No, I fully agree with that. Tampering's never going to be a full thing of the past, right? Big men are always going to be, there's always going to be loopholes because egos are involved, money's involved, and winning matters more than just about anything in college sports. But I think in egregious examples, you might see it, right? And that's where I think, again, Wisconsin has had several players they've lost, and Wisconsin has not gone after any other school. I think they consider this a bit of an egregious example, and they're going to have more details under the hood than we do. But I think you could see other places where if a school really feels like they went out, they made a financial commitment to a player, Caden Proctor example, and he takes that money, right? That money is exchanged, and then another school comes in and entices them with a bigger offer. And I'll use Wisconsin as an example. If they get nothing out of that, I think you potentially could see other schools say, especially in the new era where potentially we're going to have more restrictions, where there's going to be a clearinghouse to kind of vet some of this stuff, you could see more legal action. And I think this opens the door for at least that, where schools may have to be a little more careful about the T's and the I's going forward, just to ensure that, yeah, we're still going to do this, but we're going to make sure we're a little more careful and clean about it. And you could see this as a bit of a precedent towards that potentially. But you're right. It's not going to lead to widespread litigation.
Do you think there's any fault of the collectives for exchanging the money or setting up deals where the money goes to the player before he's actually taken the field? Like the unregulated nature of the market is certainly a problem that leads to that. But an incredibly specific example that I think of. I don't know if you watched iCarly back in the day. I did quite a
Okay.
bit. There was a scene where there's a t-shirt making contest, and Carly and Freddie are on one side and Sam is on the other. And they get kids to start working for them. And Carly and Freddie make the mistake of paying the kids before they did the work. And then the kids got lazy and they said, well, we won't pay you. And the kids were like, you already paid us. And then they walked out on the job after they were You know what I mean? Like, you see what I'm getting at? It feels like there might be at least a little bit of responsibility on the Wisconsin NIL collective for not facilitating. Like, I suppose the other angle as well, you know, NIL collectives have backed out on payments before. We've certainly seen that. I don't know. What do you make of all that?
No, listen, I think it's a good angle. I often in life, I like to think that nobody's ever 100% at blame and nobody's ever 100% blameless. I think there's always a middle ground in just about any type of disagreement. And I'm sure there's things Wisconsin and the collective could have done better, or maybe things they could have done better to safeguard themselves, which I'm sure they'll learn from and move forward. And I'm sure other collectives are learning from and moving forward in process. So no, I understand that. I just don't think in this era that you keep the top talent necessarily with IOUs. You know, like you almost need to
probably
put money up front. And again, there's an expectation. You're dealing with players that are getting paid now, which if people watch Locked On Badgers, I'm a big proponent of. I think that's a long time coming. But with that comes some expectations. You know, NIL was not created to invite tampering. And if you're, players and the student athletes are certainly going to have rights, well, then so should collectives and universities. Like, this should not be a one-way street where you can walk in somewhere and let's just talk player A. It doesn't even matter. Get a big payday, not pay, and just leave and get another big payday somewhere else. That is not the point of this. That's quite frankly called stealing. So again, I cringe a little bit at the pushback to Wisconsin on this, where unless their lawsuit is just BS, which I don't think it's moving forward if it was, they're just trying to get fair compensation for money that they paid. And I think that's a very reasonable take.